Alright, so I'm going to try and show how to replace the keyboard on this MacBook Pro model A1502. I forgot which year exactly, but I believe most of them are the same. So I already removed the motherboard in a earlier video. It's probably the last one or two videos I did. So I removed the logic board. The battery I removed afterwards. It's kind of a pain as well, but I have other videos where I show how to remove the battery on these models. So if you need to see how to remove the battery, just look for the model number of the MacBook and battery removal or replacement. Okay, or if you need a link, just let me know. I'll see if I can put a link in the description below. But once you remove the battery and once you remove the logic board and everything else, I removed the speakers as well. This little cover, you have to remove it. So what you do is you just get a thin tool underneath here. I just use this pry tool and I kind of twist it slightly. And if you have like a small screwdriver, you can get like a small flathead screwdriver. So what you do is you pry this up a little, then stick the little screwdriver under there, and that will help you start prying it up. Okay, so once you get that underneath, and lift up the, let's see if I can show this, but lift up the metal plate here. Okay, and once you lift up this metal plate, alright, let me see if I can show this. Once you lift up the metal plate, you can get the pry tool underneath. It's hard to do this and show it in the camera, but basically you pry that up and then you get your pry tool underneath there. So as you can see, I got the pry tool underneath this metal plate, okay? And then once you get the pry tool underneath the metal plate, you can use that to kind of lift up here. So they have an adhesive all underneath here, so you have to kind of slowly pry this up. So the adhesive kind of peels up slowly, so you kind of have to pry it and then just hold it. If you can, get the pry tool on the upper layer under here, okay, like this. Oops. This is a little bit tricky, so I'm going to use my fingernails to do this, but alright, so get underneath. You can use this metal plate as well, this part that's on top of the keyboard, to help pull it up, because the adhesive is only on this bottom part. Okay, so pry it up. Okay, I don't know why the adhesive is so strong on this one. Usually it's not this strong. It could be because today's getting colder, so with warmer weather, it comes out a lot easier. You can use like a hairdryer or something to warm it up to make it easier. I'm using quite a bit of force to peel it, but you want to go slow. Don't just yank it up or you'll bend the metal. Alright, once you get up part of it, you can go along, slowly peel it up. Okay, be careful with the two cables here. Alright. Apple wanted to make this model a huge pain to replace the keyboard, trackpad, and the battery. So if you are going to do this, you might want to just buy the whole metal plate, but watch the video first before you attempt this, because if you plan to replace your keyboard or trackpad, you will want to see how difficult this is before you go ahead and do that. Anyways, so the plate comes off. I like to bend it back so it goes back flat if it got kind of flexed or bent a little bit. Okay, so make sure you bend it back so it stays flat. All right, and then set that aside. All right, this thing is gonna get stuck to everything, so I need to move it out of the way. Okay, so you got that. You got the trackpad cable under here. If you want, you can take the trackpad out just to be safe. So when you start prying up the keyboard, you don't accidentally damage the trackpad. All right, so what's going on here? Okay, so just grab the cable, try and pull it, but pull it this way while you're pulling it up, so that way you don't crease the cable. Okay. All right, this is a tricky part. Okay, so after that, you'll see that there's an adhesive under there. So if you want, you can take a small screwdriver and then you can kind of peel up that adhesive. All right, hold that up. So I'm going to use that to peel up the adhesive. Alright, just like that, and then stick it back to the cable. We'll stick that back in place, okay. So once you do that, the trackpad does come out from the top, I believe. Let me see, how does this go? It peels, okay, yeah. So we are going to remove this using a T5 screwdriver. Okay, so we'll remove the 4 screws that are holding the trackpad. I'm not going to remove the screws that are holding these plates to the palm rest though. We can leave those in. Okay. So again, this is one of the more difficult repairs that I wouldn't recommend unless you just have a whole bunch of time and you want to risk messing with it. Okay. Alright, so now that we got that, we can move this cable, let the trackpad drop through, okay, just like that, and the trackpad goes like that. So when you put the trackpad, you have to put the bottom in first at an angle, and then you just slide it back up with the cable going through the slot. Alright, so now for the hard part, okay, so if you're gonna do this, usually I'll use a bag. Let's see if I can do it without it. I'm gonna try and just push the keyboard through from the other side. Normally what I do is I get a bag and then I rip all of these things, rip the whole keyboard out. Okay, so, but if you use a plastic bag, make sure you have the logic board, the motherboard and stuff out of the way because you don't want to get static to damage them. Okay, so there's this plastic on top, which is for the keyboard backlight. So what you want to do is take a needle or a small flathead screwdriver, and then let me see if I can show this, but underneath here, usually this part will have a little gap. It'll all be taped down, but usually you'll have a small gap. So I take this small screwdriver and I kind of peel up this area like that. Okay. Once you get that up, you can peel it slightly. Actually, let me zoom in a tiny bit more. Okay, so you can peel this and you want to slowly, so I'm pulling it away from there, so I'm pulling it this way, and then at the same time I'm pulling it up. And a lot of times they'll make these sharp cuts in here. If you just yank on it, it'll tear. So if you can, you kind of want to try and get a tool underneath and then use that to help you peel up away from that slit. Okay, so like that. And then you can keep peeling. Again, you want to do this slowly because the adhesive underneath, if it gets stuck to the keyboard, sometimes it will tear. I mean, sometimes you can't help it, but yeah, just peel it very slowly. Okay, slowly and carefully. Again, I'm pulling it away from the part that's stuck down to kind of keep it more flat. All right, we will have to take this thing off. So the keyboard, they put some adhesive to hold the keyboard connector down. So what you want to do is peel that up. And once you get that up, you can peel this piece off. Okay. So this is one of the most annoying MacBook keyboard repairs. Okay. So you get that out and then you can put this back down if you want. Okay, just like that. Just don't stick it all the way down because you will have to take it back out and then put the new cable under. Okay, so again, keep peeling this up. All right, just like this. Okay, so you can tell that the way this is designed, Apple really didn't want people to replace this keyboard. All right, even Apple doesn't replace this keyboard, they just replace the whole palm rest assembly. Okay, because the way they designed it, it's not worth the time and effort. All right. All right, we're gonna peel this up. Okay, then you got this part kind of taped down as well, so you need to push it out. Okay, so push this piece out, and there we go. So this is the keyboard backlight. So here you can see the connector for the keyboard backlight, and underneath you can see it's just all this foil. So when it shines, let me see if I can feel where the light bars are. I think the LEDs are just at the top actually on this model. So the LEDs I think are just up here, and it shines the light down through, and then the silver just reflects it up through the keyboard. Alright, so we're going to set this aside. Oh, one of those little circle things came out. So these have these little black circle pieces. I mean, they're not really necessary, but they go over these little holes. One of them came out. I don't know where the other one went. Well, we'll stick that one there. Alright, and then we'll put this here. Okay, so now that we got that out, as you can see, there was some, I don't know if you can see the liquid damage. I can see it, but there's liquid damage under here. And then as you can see, each one of these is a little rivet holding the keyboard in place. So there's probably like, I think it was like 70 something rivets. So yeah, so this keyboard is super difficult to pop out. The way it's designed, you'll probably want to start on this one because this is the largest key. So if you can pop this up, what I would do is get a tool. They actually have a, I don't know if you can even see, but there's a little hole there. So if you can get a flathead screwdriver under there, you can use that to help pry that out. They also have a hole here as well. So this side is where you would start. This tool is too big. So let me see if I get a flathead screwdriver. So usually I don't replace the keyboard on these models because it's all rivets. A lot of the models, they'll have screws that go around the border, and those make it a lot easier because once you remove the screws around the border, you can lift part of the keyboard up and then you can peel the whole keyboard out, like yank it out, and it'll pull all these rivets out. But we're going to give this a shot. Again, usually I don't attempt it on this model just because it's kind of a pain. So let's see what we can do. So I'm gonna get my flathead screwdriver in this little groove right where this rivet is, and I'm gonna put my finger over the rivet so I don't lose the rivet. So hopefully I can pop this up. Let's see if it'll pop up or if it will just destroy this keyboard. I might have to cover both. All right, well, let's see here. Come on. There we go. Oops. I just shot one of the rivets far away. That's what I was worried about. One thing you could do is you can put some tape over the top of this. So that way when you pop it out, you can actually save the rivet. Let me see if I... Usually I have a few of those rivets somewhere. Let's see here. Yep, I got one. Okay. So, actually, that's not even a rivet, it's a screw. Okay, I don't know if I have any of those little rivets. I might replace it with a screw, we'll see. Actually, here's one. Okay, so I do have a rivet. So, that's what I was saying, that usually with these, I would have it inside a plastic bag, but then you won't be able to see anything I'm doing. So once I have it in the plastic bag, I will actually rip all these screws out. So let me show you. I got a plastic bag here. Okay, so normally I would put it in the plastic bag, but that's probably going to be very difficult for you guys to see. I don't know if I can do that on camera. Let me see if I can do it this way. Okay. So, since we got that key out, let me see if I can push it through. No way. That's impossible. So, I am probably going to have to use the bag method, and you guys just won't be able to see it. Okay, let me try this. So, let's try and remove this one. I'm going to keep my finger over the rivet, and hopefully it doesn't shoot out somewhere. Okay. There we go. Okay, so the rivet is still there. There we go. no, it doesn't want to. Now that rivet is stuck in there. Oh, there we go. Okay, so set that rivet aside. Now I don't know where it flew out to. Alright, so I'm gonna have to look for these little rivets that are flying out. But you get the idea. You have to pry all of this out. Once you can get like 2 or 3 of these, then you can actually tear the whole thing out. So let me see if I can get 3 of them. Usually if you lose some of the rivets, it's okay. Just have it like skip a few. Who's calling me right now? Give me a second. Oh, they hung up. Alright. Actually, give me a second because I'm getting some calls. I'm going to pause the video and I'll be back. Alright, let's continue. Okay, so like I was saying, you kind of want to try and get out 3 of them. This side might be easier. Let me try on this side. Okay, now that we got these out, let's try and pry this. Get the screwdriver under and then pry it up. There we go. A lot of times also these rivets break, so what I have to do is fill in these little holes with epoxy using JB Weld. So a lot of times I'll mix up this stuff and fill the spots that can't be filled. And if I lose too many of these rivets, what I have to do is cut little pieces of this credit card material, shove them under the keys to help hold the keys under, to hold the keys against the keyboard frame. Okay, so yeah, this isn't a fun repair. But again, let's go. We did this side. Okay, now let's try and get this one. And then we're going to try and use the plastic bag method that I mentioned earlier. Okay, so pop that up. Come on. There we go. I don't know why these rivets are getting stuck in there. There we go. Alright, so we got 3 whole rivets that are good to go. Let's try and get this last one. Looks like that's preventing it from giving me a good grip to rip it out. And yeah, these keys are, I mean, you can save the broken keyboard to reuse the keys. Sometimes people lose some keyboard keys, their kids or babies rip them out. So you can save those. Alright. Geez, these things are so small and difficult to see. I don't know where that thing went. Alright, so I'm gonna likely be replacing it with epoxy anyways. So let's see here. Oh, is that one? Nope. Okay, so let's go ahead and grab the plastic bag. So once you got like a major portion of these ripped out, I'm gonna have to zoom out probably. I'm gonna do this like in my lap or something. So once you do that, you take the bag here, okay, like this. And then now that you have it in a bag, when you push, I don't know if you'll even be able to see it. I tried to use a clear bag so you can see what I'm doing. Okay, let's see here. So we got this. So the keyboard, what I do is, as you can see, this key is coming out because I already pried that out. So what I do is I grab the keyboard and I grab this end and I just pull it. So let's see, I might have to pop out a few more of those rivets because it's not giving me a good enough grip. Let's see here. Yeah, let's remove these 2 and then that should be good enough. Okay, let's zoom back in. I know this is, I don't think anyone's gonna attempt this, but maybe some people want to try. Okay, so get the tool in again and pry this up. Oops, I'm damaging my screwdriver. Alright, got another one. almost invisible. I can barely see these things. Here's part of the broken one. Alright. Okay, so we got that out. Now let's get this one, and hopefully that will be good enough. If you want these keyboard keys, you might want to pop the ones out first that you're prying underneath. Alright, so we're going to pop this one out as well. There we go. So that one, the thing just ripped off. Okay, Apple designed these to not be repaired, but I do what I can. I don't like throwing stuff in the garbage like Apple. They've been talking about being eco-friendly and not including chargers, but they build electronics like this that you have to throw in the garbage. So I don't believe they're eco-friendly nonsense. It's more like we'll tell you lies so you can spend more money on our stuff. Alright, so let's see if we can rip this out now. So we got this part. Oops, let me zoom back out so you can see. Alright, so get that. Let's see if we can start ripping pieces out here. Oh, I found one of the rivets. Okay. Sorry, getting in the way. Alright, so once you get this, hopefully we can start ripping some stuff out. Oops, one of the keys fell out. Oh, this is being a pain. Let's see if I can do it the other way by pulling it upwards. It's so much easier with the ones with screws. I don't know why they... Well, I do know why they decided to do this. Alright. So, I'm going to use both hands and pull up on this. Oh, there we go. Okay, so that's what we want. That you can rip these things out. Okay. Again, I have the plastic bag, so the rivets, hopefully I can recover most of them. A lot of them are going to be broken, but this is what you got to do, right? Otherwise, you probably just throw this thing away. This is the only way that is somewhat viable for repairing this stuff. Okay, turning it around. Rip this stuff out. And at the same time, you can yell out some obscenities, cursing Apple for what they do and how they make you want to spend like $1,000 just to repair this kind of stuff. Alright. Come on. There we go. Okay. Alright. We're almost at the end. Jeez. Make sure you get the bag to cover it, because you don't want to lose too many of those rivets if you can help it. Okay. Although most of them will probably be broken, but... Alright, we're almost there. There we go. So now we got the whole keyboard out. What you want to do is flip this over and shake out any of the rivets, okay, that might have fallen into this thing. Alright. Then you want to inspect it. Make sure that none of the little rivets are stuck to any adhesives. I don't know if you can see, but a lot of the rivets broke. You can see where these little posts are stuck. So that's where the rivets broke. There's several rivets that made it out okay. And then you'll see, let's see if I can even show this. You'll see these little, where is it? Where is it? Here. That little metal ring, that's a broken rivet. The top ripped out, but the shaft stayed in. Okay. Again, you want to check and make sure there's no stuck pieces here. That's very important. If you want, you can go over it with a toothbrush because if there are any pieces stuck here and you put the keyboard on top, you are going to have messed up keys because the keyboard keys are not going to press down. Okay, so I'm going to use a toothbrush just to brush off any debris. Sorry, I know it's not in camera, but basically just brushing the thing like that, okay? Just to make sure any of the broken rivet pieces aren't getting stuck on the frame of the keyboard. That's very, very important if you're going to do this. Alright, so we got this metal piece out. And now what we're going to have to do, shake up the keyboard, make sure none of those things are stuck inside. What you want to do also is check the keyboard on the back itself, because there's the adhesive and a lot of times the rivets will get stuck under there or stuck on it. Okay, I don't see any rivets stuck on this. Okay, and then the next thing you want to do to make sure, if you want to try and recover as many rivets as possible, is turn the keyboard over. If you want, you can try and flex or bend this back so it's not all completely destroyed like this. I did destroy the shift key, but I have a whole bunch of these broken keyboards, so a lot of times people lose or damage these keys without damaging their actual keyboard. So I actually save a bunch of those broken keyboards and then I can replace the keys. So again, you want to check the individual keys if they all press down. That way you know that there's no rivets caught underneath. Okay. If you don't really care about putting the rivets back and you just want to use epoxy, you can skip this step. Looks like it's good to go. Okay. There we go. And throw away these little broken rings. Okay. Let me show you what I mean with the keyboards. So I've worked on so many of these that here you can see I have a whole box of broken. These are almost all MacBook actually these are all MacBook keyboards. So I'm going to add that to the graveyard. Okay. And every so often people will need those keys, so yeah. Alright, we're going to put that away. Oops, I had some more keys here from the keyboard, so we'll throw that in as well. Okay, so once you got your bag done, what you want to do is have the open ends, okay, close it all up, grab it all together, finding lots more of these broken rivets. So do that, shake it up so that all the rivets go to the bottom. The bag has two corners at the bottom, so I grab one of those corners and shake it. That way all the rivets will end up going to the bottom. So I don't know if you can see, but you get almost all the rivets will go there. Some of them will have sticky adhesive on it, so it won't work very well, but you'll get most of them, and that's the point. You don't need to get all 100%. Okay, shake it up, and then to get the rivets out, what you do is where you have the whole pile of rivets, you just grab it like this, and then you go hold on to it, open up the bag, bring your other hand that's holding those rivets, open up, okay, like that, open it up, and then you can grab all the rivets out from this little pile. And then usually after I do that, I'll open it up again and then repeat one more time just to make sure there's no new rivets. So I do that, turn it over, right? Shake all the rivets out. Okay. Might want to double check. Again, keep the plastic bag away from the motherboard because it will generate a lot of static, and you do want to ground yourself after messing with the plastic bag to make sure that you don't get any static electricity to damage it. Oh man, I'm getting another call. well, I'm gonna have to answer them later. Alright, so what I do is now I pour all the rivets over to one hand, and then I have to sift through. There's a whole bunch of these broken ones, so I push the broken ones out of the way, and then any good ones I see, I just fish them out. Okay. There aren't too many good ones, so keep that in mind. You're probably going to have a similar situation. Alright. So I don't know if you can see, I'm going to move them hopefully into camera's view. And you can see how many kind of survived. It's probably not zoomed in enough, but there you go. Okay. So just sift through all these little broken things. Pull out the good ones. Okay. All right. Okay, that's actually not too bad. Quite a few were rescued. Okay. Sometimes you'll get some rivets that are half good, half bad. I'll show you what I mean. There weren't really many of those in here, though I only saw one. Right, double check all the broken stuff again. So look at all the rivets that broke. That's a lot. Okay. So like I was saying, sometimes you'll get some half broken ones. So I don't know if you can actually see this, but the rivet is, half of it is kind of coming out and the rest is still in. So usually I'll save those if there's multiple that are kind of close together. I'll put one of those in that spot. Alright, so I'm going to grab the bag again, shake it up one more time, make sure that these screws kind of all fall to the bottom. It helps also once you get to the bottom to kind of inflate it like this, so you can shake it up and then double check. And I only see broken junk in there, so I think as far as recovering any more rivets, that's probably as good as we're gonna get. You can save the bag, throw it, use it as a trash bag as normal. All right. Okay, so we got all these little rivets that we're going to reuse. Put this down like that. Grab your replacement keyboard. Okay, put the keyboard in place. Make sure that it goes in properly. Okay, you want to make sure that if you go over, everything will lay flat. Okay. Again, there are some rivets that broke, so you want to make sure that it's going in properly. You don't want the keyboard to be slightly sticking up, and then that's going to be annoying. Okay, this side for some reason. Okay, so this side I felt like it's not resting, so I looked at it, and actually there's this half broken rivet that's still stuck in there. Okay, so let's get that piece out. Hopefully this keyboard will still sit down there, because it is, part of it is still there. There we go. It actually helped clip it in place. That's a good thing. But again, you want to check the entire thing. There's a lot like this one. It won't go down all the way. So you have to check and remove those broken metal pieces. Okay. You probably like go over and look at it again, but alright. Sorry if my head's getting in the way again. Alright, so again, you want to make sure that you can push all the parts of the keyboard down flat. It won't stay down flat until you put in the rivets, but you want to at least make sure nothing is getting in the way to keep it from resting flat against the frame. Okay. Okay, there we go. Sorry, I don't know if my head's getting in the way, but okay. Looks like the whole keyboard can lay flat, so that's good. And I should have mentioned earlier, but if you are doing the keyboard replacement, I actually test the keyboard first before I start removing it and replacing it. So the way you do that, let me see if I guess I'll just pull this keyboard back out. So the way you do that is normally the keyboard is like this, and the keyboard plugs into the logic board or the motherboard this way. So when you get the new keyboard, unplug the old one, and then since the keyboard is usually like this, what you do is you keep the cable that way, fold the keyboard over, and you plug the keyboard in. So hold the other keyboard out of the way and plug the keyboard in like this, and then you can have the keyboard or the computer slightly open and test the keys. So it's a little bit risky because it's hard to do. If you can get an external monitor to work while you have this keyboard plugged in, then you can test it a lot easier. Okay, so let me put this keyboard back in and then reconfirm that everything seats properly. So I just slide my hand over this way and make sure that everything is seating in flush. Okay. All right, so far everything seems good. Okay, and what I do to put these back, because these things aren't magnetic, they use, it's probably like aluminum or something. So what I do is I'll take this screwdriver and I'll get like a larger bit, one that's about the same size as the entire head of that. So what I'll do, I have this, let's see, is this the right size? Yeah. So I have this hexagon thing, that's a 3.0, so it's a 3mm, or if you have something more round, but this one is good. If you don't have one of these, you can use the what is that, T9 probably? Let's see. Yeah, you can use like a T9 or a T8, and then that should fit pretty well on the rivets. All right, so first thing you want to do, if you can, put any rivets that you can on the outer frame, so especially the corners. So if you were able to save the corners, let me zoom in actually so you can see. Oh, my phone feels like it's gonna overheat, but I'll see what I can do. All right, so you got that. So again, these are kind of a pain because they're not magnetic, and sometimes you might drop them in the keyboard keys. If that happens, you need to like push the keyboard key up and then kind of use a tweezer, or you can flip the thing over and just shake it out, but it can be a little tough. Okay, so again, you want to drop the rivet in. If your finger is a little sticky, it helps. Sometimes these little rivets have like sticker residue on it, and that makes it much easier to do this. All right, so there we go. Pop that corner rivet back in, just like that. So here you can see it's holding itself in place now. Okay, I might actually use a smaller one of this. Actually, this has a rounded bit, so it's okay. All right, we'll take the other corner. Again, these are kind of a pain to grab. Let's see if it'll stick to my finger a little bit. There we go. And then you kind of just drop it in the hole. Uh-oh. I hate these to work with. Let me see here. So one of the worst things is that they're not magnetic. Let me try with some, actually I'll use my little pliers here. Okay. Alright, so let's slide this in. Dang it. I mean, you get the idea. This is going to be a super long video. I don't know if you want to stay for the, for the entire thing. But basically, you got to get all these little rivets in, as many as you can. It's a real big pain because they don't like going in the right way, and they like flying all over the place. it helps when they have sticker residue. There you go. So it helps when they're also like kind of the keyboard thing is up. That way you can line it up and then push it down. There you go. So now you can see the corners of the keyboard are in place. All right, let's do this top corner. So luckily on this one that I did, all the corners survived, which is pretty rare actually. I've done several of these, and most of the time the corner ones will get destroyed and I'll have to substitute some of the more center pins. All right. Come on, Rivet. Turn around. Dang it. Again, this is a paint. Oh, I keep forgetting to make sure it's in view of the camera. So one way that helps, if you can, is to have the rivet kind of already facing downwards but on its side, and then you kind of just slide it into the spot like that. Okay, and then push that in. There we go. So we got the 4 corners in. Those are the most important. And you pretty much get the idea. I'm going to go ahead and put in the other ones that I can. So a lot of times the rivets break. So if you can, try and space it to where you're skipping some holes, especially if you lost some of the rivets. So since there's one here and then there's an empty spot here, so I'm going to put one here. Okay. All right. And just push it down in place. All right. And then any extras you have left over, you can put back. If there's a whole bunch of these broken ones in a row and then an empty spot for a rivet, use those. That's also a good spot to put them. After I finish this, if there are enough rivets holding it in place that I don't need to use the credit cards, then I will go ahead and put the epoxy in the remaining holes to hold the thing in place. So if there's not enough rivets, it's always a good idea to do that. If you have the model where it's the screws around the frame and then the rest are rivets, you don't have to worry so much if you're missing rivets in the middle, because the outer frame will be strong enough to hold the keyboard in place. Okay, so that's another useful trick. But for this model, we will have to put the screws. All right, so there's one, or not the screws, the epoxy. All right. So here, as you can see, there's like 2 rivets here, and when I push on the bottom, it's semi-flexing up this outer side. So I can put one in the middle here that will help a lot more. Once you got like a whole outer frame of these rivets, it'll usually hold together pretty well. So the center rivets aren't as important. They do help with making the keyboard not move around so much, but they're not so important like the outer ones. Okay. All right. So we've got another rivet that we can put out here. If you're actually watching this whole video, I'm impressed. I would think most people would be bored and be like, why am I even watching this? But yeah, if you're still here, thank you for watching. All right, grab another rivet. So there's several holes, but I'm going to skip one here. Okay, just in case I'm missing some. So as you can see, there's one rivet here, and one rivet here. That's enough to hold this part in, even though there's a spot for a rivet there. So again, if I can, I'll try and make use of that. All right, this part, there's one of those broken rivets there, and this piece, there we go, was having a hard time laying completely flat. All right, there's also another one here, but since I put one there already, I'm going to skip it for now, and then we're going to go with this one since it's in the middle with a bunch of no rivets around it. Oh, see what I mean? I dropped a rivet in there, so I have to push this up, and then I can get it out. All right. Here we go. Let's push this rivet in. Alright, there we go. Let's see here. All of these are broken. Oh man. Alright, this one is pretty loose and there's not many rivets around it. So there's 2 more here, so I'm going to put those 2 in. That should help keep it from moving around. This is such a pain. I kind of wonder how the factory does this, if a machine just like shoots all these rivets in or something. I don't know how Apple did this, because if people in China are just sitting here pushing in a bunch of these rivets, that's, yeah, I don't know. If somebody knows how this works, let me know. I don't know how the factory would manage this. Okay, I'm gonna go and put this one in the middle here on the edge. Again, the frame is the most important part. So if you can get a solid frame, the rest isn't as important. But you do want to make sure this can go down. Okay. Let's see. So there's also 2 here, but that's not as important. There's 1 in the center here, so I'm probably going to use that one. All right. There's 1 also here, so I'm going to put that one. That's since there's not many other ones for quite a distance. So if you get a lot of these rivets to hold it in place, then you won't need to use the little cut up credit card bits to hold the keyboard to the frame, because those will hold it in place. All right. It's holding itself pretty good. There's 2 more here. I'm probably going to use both those spots. To make the keyboard more solid. Okay. So this kind of thing, it's kind of a complex repair that you can't just blindly do it. You need to kind of know what you're doing. All right, and why you're putting the rivets in that certain spot. So there's another one down here. I'm going to use that since none of the ones at the spacebar have anything. Okay. Guess I'll also show the epoxy part just in case people are kind of curious. Let's see. This looks to be okay. Is that holding down properly? Feels kind of like it's sticking up, but I don't know. Okay. There we go. Let's see. We got 1 here, 1 here. Got the corner one there, so I'm going to put it on this larger one down here. Hopefully we have enough. We only have 5 left. And 1 is a wimpy one, so. Alright. That's holding pretty well. This part's moving a little bit. I might put the wimpy one there. Okay, so we got towards the center here. This is actually holding pretty well. I'm going to put 1 here, but let me take the wimpy one and put it where there's a whole bunch of other spots. Okay, so we're going to put it in this one. Actually, there's 1 here too. Which is more important? Let me see which moves more. That moves, doesn't move at all. This kind of moves, so I'm going to put the wimpy one up here. Okay, the wimpy one is where the head is semi-ripped out. I try and just bend it back to reuse it. Okay, is it going in place? go. So we're reusing the wimpy one that was breaking off partially. And you can't even tell that it was a wimpy one. Okay. Alright, so we got 4 left. Let me see strategically where I can put them. So you got all 3 of these in a row. I'll probably put one, I'll probably put one in this corner because these 3 are all broken. Let's see, we got 2 in the middle here. We got 2 in the middle here. So we'll put one here and probably put one here. Okay. Actually, we got one down there already and one down here. So if I put one up here, yeah, let's put one here. Let me test by pressing. Yeah, this side definitely moves a lot more. All right. So with how firm this keyboard is holding up, probably doesn't need any of the epoxy, but I'll probably do it anyways just to make it nicer. This one is coming out. Let me use a flathead to kind of push around it to make sure it goes down properly. Go. Okay. Let's see, we got 3 left. So let's try and push some of this area up. See what happens. Okay, this is the weaker of the bunch. So that's the best way to tell, is you kind of push on the keys and see what's flexing. This one's kind of moving around, so I might actually put a screw, or I mean a rivet there. This side is missing a whole bunch. That one doesn't move at all, so we'll leave that be. This one moves a bunch, so we'll put that. And we got 1 left, so luckily it broke in a good enough spot. Here we go. Okay, I'm gonna push all the keys, see which ones move around. This one kind of moves, but there's no rivet areas near it to put anything. This one also kind of moves, but again, there's no rivet areas here, so I am going to have to put the epoxy. This middle section moves a lot, so I am going to put epoxy. And because if I push on the back here it moves, then let me turn this off. Sorry. So if you push on the back and it moves, then that's where you want to cut little pieces of credit card and shove it under the keys to hold it in place, so that way you can epoxy it down. Alright, so I am going to put the epoxy just to help it be a bit stronger. We only need 1 more. This side is kind of pushing up. It's a hard choice. I either have to use this one or this one. The center part is kind of flexing up more. Let me see if I hold this down. That moves a lot. Okay, I think this side is probably the wiser piece. Alright, so let's put that there. Push that down. Okay, there we go. It's probably about as solid as it will get it with what we have. So again, what you do is you push on the back here, find out where it's kind of wobbling, and then we're going to have to use some pieces of old, or these junk credit cards that they always send me in the mail. Okay, so what I do is I cut a piece. Oops, I don't know if you can even see what I'm doing. Cut a piece like that, and then check how big the key is. Cut it smaller than that. Actually, it should be bigger, sorry. Alright, so again, check on here. So towards the center there's pretty bad. So I'm gonna go towards this side. So what I do is I pry underneath. You can use like a small pry tool or something, but you get underneath the keyboard key, slide the keyboard or the broken piece of credit card in there, but you want to get underneath both. So the tricky part is you need to lift up both at the same time. Okay, so I do that with my pry tool, and then you have to kind of get the credit card in there. So let me do this, get one in there. All right, and then pry up this side. You can probably tell I don't really do this kind of fix too often because it's not really worth it. All right, and then while you have both sides pried up, try and get the credit card to go underneath between both like that. All right, just like that, and that should hold it in place. So when you press on it, this shouldn't really move. All right, and that's how you know it's good. So just like that. Then you can go along, look for more loose spots. This is actually, it's actually all pretty solid other than that one spot. Okay, so since everything else is solid, there's a little bit of play still up here. So I'm gonna put another card towards the top here. So in between the delete key, all right? So same thing. Get a thin pry tool, pry it up slightly, get the card underneath, pry up the other side, and then try and slide it over so you can get it under both keys at the same time. All right. Come on, go in. Camera doesn't want to go for some reason. There we go. All right, so now that we got those pieces in place, if you want, you can put some tape to keep it from moving around, but check underneath. Seems pretty solid. Okay. All right, so the space bar seems a little bit wobbly, so let's see how I can do that because it's on the bottom. So this side, I'm going to shove them under these two pieces. All right, let's cut another piece of credit card. These are just advertisement cards, so if you guys are wondering, you can have the numbers. It won't really do anything for you. All right. Okay, so let's pry this up. Let's see here. Let me confirm which side. Okay, it's mainly this side. So again, pry underneath the keyboard, get the thing underneath there, pry underneath the other keyboard key, slide it over, put the thing under there. Here we go. And that should hold it in place. Again, you want to make sure it's not moving too much. It's moving mostly because this is just flexing in the way. I might try and put part of it underneath the rest of that keyboard piece just to hold it stronger. But you can tell when you press on it, it doesn't rattle, it doesn't make any sounds. Okay, so we are going to put some underneath this side of the keyboard as well. Be careful with the keyboard connector. If you damage that, then yep, you're gonna have to do all of this again, which is gonna suck. Right. So the worst thing is if you didn't test the keyboard and it turns out the keyboard is defective, then you have to take everything back out. So hopefully you were able to test it like how I mentioned later in the video. Okay. Let's pry this up. Pry this up. Get that piece underneath both sides, just like that. Alright, again, it's still kind of loose. I don't think I can do anything about that because that's just the cable. Once I fold this down, it shouldn't be an issue. Yeah, that's in between the rivets, so it's not really affecting the rivets. Okay, so, yep. Alright, so now we're going to have to mix up some JB Weld and then just fill in the little holes that are missing the rivets. Okay, so let's grab this JB Weld stuff. I'll probably put a link for that in the description below as well. Let's see here. Where is my tray for this? So I use this plastic tray. I don't know why I keep this round leg on it. This is from like a SSD. I'm going to cut off the excess because it's kind of makes it get in the way. Alright. Making this video is costing me business because people were calling and stuff while I was making this video. So hopefully it will be useful to some people. I hope I'm not just doing this for nothing. Alright. So we got this. Let's see, I guess I have to move it out of the way. Alright, so you want equal parts of JB Weld. Doesn't look like it'll take much, but it'll take more than it looks. Okay, let me open this up. So we'll get about that much. Actually, that's probably too much. That might be too little. I don't know. I'll just skip between them, and then if I don't have enough, it should still hold really strong. Okay. When you do this, make sure you don't use a tool that already has the white part and mix it with the black part, because if you do, you'll end up hardening the whole tube, and you do not want that. That's a big waste of money. This stuff is pretty pricey, though it does go quite a long way. Okay. Alright, so I just mixed approximately 2 equal parts. Try and get every bit I can. Alright. Alright, then I use another tool to actually stir this stuff up. Alright, just stir it up. Just stir it up really good. Just kill the mosquito. Alright, stir this up. And make sure you scrape the bottom, because if you look at the bottom, it doesn't mix that well. So make sure you scrape the bottom off as well. Okay, there's some residue of the white one. Make sure to stir it up well. Okay, just like that. And I spin the thing as I move it away to scrape off the JB Weld from the tool I'm using. Okay. Alright, so now what you do, look for all the spots where it's missing the rivets, get some of the JB Weld, and then put it in that little hole. Alright. And you basically just do this for all the little rivets that are missing. If you want, you can put it on the rivet too, but you don't really need to, okay? Just do that. So I don't know if my head's going to be getting in the way while I'm doing this, but just do that. Alright, and this will replace the rivets. So I don't know if you see what I'm doing, but I just dab it into there, and then I use a little drop of JB Weld to get in the little nook and cranny of that broken rivet. Probably ended up making way too much, but it's okay. I'll find a use for it, or it'll just be wasted. I think people are messaging me and I'm just ignoring them because I'm busy doing this. Alright. So just keep going. Usually what I like to do is, after I do this, just let it sit for about an hour. Try and make sure that the epoxy isn't built up too high, because you do want this to sit flush. But if you let it sit for about an hour, the epoxy will partially harden, and then you can actually push the top of the epoxy stuff down to flatten it and make sure that it's not sticking up too much. And that will help you with putting the logic board and everything back, and it's not too sticking up too much that it can damage. Alright. The backlight cover will help, but don't rely on that. If you make the points on this too sharp, it will puncture through that and it can damage it. So, waiting about an hour just for it to solidify a bit, then you can kind of push down the stuff. Okay. Just like that. And be very careful you don't get it into the key. It almost dripped a little bit in there. That can be really bad because then that key is not going to work. So make sure to keep the stuff away from the back of the keys. Hopefully you can even see what I'm doing. I don't know if you can. Okay. And this JB Weld is magnetic, so if there are magnets on the computer or something, be careful because it will pull it together, basically like if you've seen those magnetic putty slime videos, it'll pull it all to the magnet. So you can see how many rivets actually got ripped out. I have to add this to every single hole that's missing a rivet. Again, after you give it about an hour or so, maybe an hour and a half, you can start pushing the epoxy flat so that it's not sticking up. Okay. If you want, you can fill the missing holes that you missed the rivets as well. It'll be a little harder to get the epoxy down into the hole where it's missing the rivets. Can add some in there as well. What I do is I pull it and it makes like a little tail, and then you can put the tail into that missing rivet spot. Okay. The JB Weld, when it's that small and thin, it's not that strong, but combined with all the other spots where it's held in place, it does pretty well. Okay. Oh, sorry, I'm going off the camera. I definitely made too much, but too much is better than too little. Because if you have to remix it while you're doing this, it's kind of a pain. Alright, we're getting there. So I'm not going to show the full reassembly because I have to let this set, but basically you just do everything in reverse to put that plastic film back on, replace the adhesive on the connector, or maybe I'll do it as a second video, I guess. I think I already did a reassembly video of everything else, but I guess I'll do a reassembly video. Maybe I can just merge the videos. Okay. Hopefully this will be useful to some of you guys. I have a feeling maybe only one person might attempt this kind of repair. Everybody else will be like, are you crazy? And if anyone has a better way to do this, to get these out and not destroy a bunch of the rivets, let me know. I have a feeling you need like a hydraulic press or something. Okay, let's see. I'm gonna look close up, make sure I got them all. Going row to row. Okay, let's go in the third row. We're missing some. Alright. If you watch this far, I'm amazed. You're probably, at this point, most people are probably like, okay, I get it, and then they'll just go ahead and start doing stuff. Sometimes that can lead to trouble if I mention something that I forgot to mention during the video. So hopefully that won't happen too often. Oh, sorry, my head keeps blocking the view. Yeah, it's not easy to record these as I repair because normally I don't work on it at certain angles that I have to do to be able to record it. So hopefully people appreciate these. Makes my job harder. Okay. Almost there. Not really. Okay. Guess I didn't make too much extra. Let's grab some more. Getting there, guys. Again, if you're doing this, you don't really need to fill every single hole as long as you kind of have like close to every other one. I'm going off camera again, sorry. But I'm gonna fill in every single one because I like to make sure to do a good job. I've seen some where they just rip it out and then leave out the rivets, but it makes the keyboard like very squishy and it's not a nice typing feeling, so I don't want to leave my customers with that, even though they might be okay with it. But I can already tell the stuff is getting thicker and a little more difficult to work with. But we are almost done. I finish this, you'll be able to see how many rivets actually broke, plus how many are actually missing. I didn't keep track of how many are missing. The nice thing with this method is if your keyboard ever breaks again, the epoxy breaks back out not too difficult. It's not as difficult as getting out the rivets. And then when you put the new keyboard, it'll fit just fine, and then you just epoxy it again. Oh, I think I actually made almost the right amount of epoxy because I'm getting kind of low. If anyone's going to ask, this doesn't affect the backlight at all because the backlight shines through the metal pieces, through the holes, not through these metal pieces. So even if you go out of the area, it should be okay as long as you're not putting it into the keyboard, into the keys themselves. Okay, let me move this epoxy stuff closer together because it's getting harder to grab a droplet. Right, let's see. We got almost all of it. Sorry, my head's going in the way again. Alright, I think that's all the spots. Let me check again closely. Let me fix up some of the ones that aren't too good. Alright. Just one up there. Okay. Those all have rivets. Alright, I think we are good to go. So we just have to let this sit. So I don't know if you can see. Let me show you how many actually lost rivets, if you are curious. Okay, hopefully you can see all of that. Alright, so again, now we're going to let this sit. I don't know what I'm going to do with this leftover. So there's a little bit of leftover. It's not too bad. Did quite a good job at not wasting too much. Usually what I do with the excess is I was using a toothpick to scrape the two parts of the epoxy. So I kind of just strengthen it because I always end up breaking the toothpick. So I'm gonna just roll that in there. To strengthen it a bit more. And I can also use this to tell when the epoxy is ready for me to work on it, because I can check if this one is solidified slightly. And if it's solidified enough that if I touch it, it doesn't stick to my hands, but I can mold it kind of like a clay. Okay, so it does have its use as well. There we go. So I'm going to just stick it in this pink anti-static mat if I can. Actually, I have to stick it the other way because that one I dulled. It doesn't want to stick. I have to use a thicker foam. Let me grab a thicker piece of foam. Okay. And we'll just stick this thing in there. Alright, and we'll leave that there. Okay, so I'm going to let this sit for probably about an hour to an hour and a half, and then I'm basically just going to pat these down, so that way if there's any lumps sticking up too high or sharp points, it'll be flattened, and then I'll put it back together. So I'm going to do I'm not going to do a part 2, I'm just going to merge the video together, so I guess I'll see you in a bit. Alright, bye.